The autumn rain tapped against the windows of Windsor Castle as Charles walked slowly through the long corridor. His footsteps echoed softly on the marble floor. He had been thinking about this conversation for weeks, knowing it needed to happen, but dreading every moment of it. Kate stood by the large window in the blue drawing room, watching the raindrops race down the glass. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back in a neat style that had become her signature look. When she heard the door open, she turned around, offering a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Your Majesty," she said, giving a slight curtsy. Even after all these years in the family, the formal moments still felt important to her. Charles waved his hand gently. "Please, Kate, just Charles today. We need to talk as family." The room felt heavy with unspoken words. Kate had noticed the tension in the family for months. The newspapers were full of stories about disagreements behind palace walls. Some said William was pushing for changes too quickly. Others claimed the older generation was holding back progress. Kate found herself caught in the middle, trying to support her husband while respecting the traditions that came with their roles. Charles moved to the fireplace, where a small fire crackled warmly. He picked up a poker and stirred the logs, sending sparks up the chimney. It was something his father used to do when he had difficult things to discuss. The simple action helped him gather his thoughts. "I've been watching how hard you work," Charles began, his voice quiet but clear. "The way you handle the public duties, the charity work, how you are with the children. You've grown into this role beautifully." Kate felt a warmth in her chest at his words. She had worked so hard to prove herself worthy of the position she never expected to hold when she first met William at university. "Thank you. That means a great deal coming from you." Charles turned to face her fully. His eyes, so similar to William's, held a mixture of pride and concern. "But I worry about the pressure on all of you. On William especially. He feels he needs to change everything at once." This was the conversation Kate had been expecting. She had seen the stress lines appearing on her husband's face. He stayed up late into the night, reading reports and planning new initiatives. He wanted to modernize the monarchy, to make it more relevant for younger generations. But every change met resistance from advisors who had served the crown for decades. "He wants to do right by the country," Kate said carefully. She walked over to sit in one of the silk-covered chairs near the fireplace. "Sometimes I think he feels the weight of the future on his shoulders." Charles nodded slowly. "I understand that feeling very well. I spent decades waiting, planning, thinking about what I would do differently. But I learned something important during those years." He paused, choosing his words with care. Kate waited, knowing this was important. Change that comes too fast can break the very thing you're trying to fix. The monarchy has survived for over 1,000 years because it learned to bend without breaking. Your husband has good ideas, but he needs to understand that patience isn't the same as doing nothing. Kate thought about William's latest project, a plan to open more royal residences to the public and use the money for housing programs. It was a good idea, but the logistics were complicated. The security concerns alone were giving everyone headaches. "He listens to me," Kate said. "Sometimes. What would you like me to tell him?" Charles smiled for the first time during their conversation. "I don't want you to tell him anything from me. I want you to help him remember that he doesn't have to carry everything alone. The institution is bigger than any one person, even the king." Through the window, Kate could see the gardens where she often walked with the children. Charlotte loved to feed the swans in the pond, while George preferred to climb the old oak trees. Louis was still too young for long walks, but he enjoyed picking flowers for his mother. These simple family moments felt so far from the formal world of royal duties. "There's something else," Charles continued. "I know Camilla has been difficult lately." Kate's expression didn't change, but Charles noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. This was sensitive ground for everyone in the family. "She feels threatened by the popularity you and William have with the public," Charles said honestly. "It's not personal against you. She worked so hard to be accepted, and sometimes she worries that acceptance could disappear." This was true, though Kate had tried not to think about it too much. The polls consistently showed that she and William were the most popular members of the royal family. Their children were adored by the public. When they appeared at events, crowds gathered in ways they hadn't since Diana's time. Camilla, despite years of faithful service and gradual acceptance, never achieved that same level of public affection. She did her duties well and had earned respect, but love from the people remained elusive. Kate could understand how that must feel. "I never wanted to make anyone feel uncomfortable," Kate said. "I just try to do my job the best I can." "I know," Charles replied, "and that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you. You have a gift for this work that can't be taught, but with that gift comes responsibility." He moved to the window where Kate had been standing earlier. Outside, the rain was beginning to lighten, and patches of blue sky appeared between the clouds. "The monarchy needs what you and William bring to it," he continued. "The energy, the connection with younger people, the ability to make ancient traditions feel relevant today. But it also needs the wisdom that comes from experience and the stability that comes from gradual change." Kate joined him at the window. "You want us to work together better?" "I want all of us to remember that we're on the same team," Charles said. "When the family appears divided, it hurts the entire institution. When we support each other publicly and privately, everyone benefits." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching as a peacock strutted across the lawn below. The royal peacocks had been at Windsor for generations, symbols of beauty and pride that seemed fitting for the surroundings. "William told me once that he felt like he was walking a tightrope," Kate said, "trying to honor tradition while meeting modern expectations. I think sometimes he feels alone up there." Charles understood this feeling completely. During his own long wait to become king, he had often felt isolated by the unique pressures of his position. Few people could truly understand what it meant to have your entire life planned out by duty and expectation. "Perhaps that's something we can change," he said. "Not the expectations, those come with the territory, but the feeling of being alone. We're all walking that same tightrope in different ways." Kate thought about the upcoming state visit from the President of France. It would involve dozens of events over several days, each one carefully planned to strengthen diplomatic relationships. William had been studying French foreign policy reports for weeks, determined to be thoroughly prepared, but he was also nervous about representing the country on such an important occasion. "The state visit next month," she said. "William is worried about it." Charles smiled. His first major diplomatic hosting as heir. "I remember my first state visit. I was terrified I would say something wrong and cause an international incident." "What helped you get through it?" "Remembering that most people want these events to succeed," Charles said. "The President of France isn't coming here hoping to find fault with William. He's coming to build a good relationship with the future king of the United Kingdom. Everyone wants it to go well." This perspective was helpful. Kate often forgot that other leaders had their own pressures and concerns. The French president was probably just as nervous about making a good impression as William was. "I'll remind him of that," she said. Charles turned back toward the room. "There's one more thing we should discuss. The children." Kate's attention sharpened. Her children were always her top priority, royal duties or not. "They're growing up in a very different world than previous royal children," Charles continued. "Social media, constant photography, public interest in every detail of their lives. It's going to require careful navigation." This was something that kept Kate awake at night sometimes. George was already old enough to understand that his life was different from his classmates. He couldn't have sleepovers at friends' houses without security arrangements. His birthday parties made national news. Every school play and sports day was photographed and analyzed. "We try to give them as normal a childhood as possible," Kate said. "But it's challenging." "I know, and I want you to know that you and William have my full support in protecting them. Whatever boundaries you need to set, whatever restrictions you think are necessary, I will back you completely." This was reassuring. There had been tensions in the past when different family members had different ideas about how much exposure the children should have. Some advisors thought more public appearances would help the monarchy's image. Others worried about the children's privacy and well-being. "Charlotte asked me last week why strangers always want to take her picture," Kate said. "I didn't know what to tell her." Charles's expression softened. "What did you say?" "I told her that people are interested in our family because we have a special job helping our country." But that didn't really answer her question. "It's age-appropriate, though," Charles said. "As they get older, you can explain more. The important thing is that they understand they're loved for who they are, not just what they represent." A soft knock on the door interrupted their conversation. Charles called for whoever it was to enter, and his private secretary appeared. "Your Majesty, I apologize for the interruption. You have a call from the Prime Minister in 15 minutes. Charles nodded. "Thank you, James. We're almost finished here." After the secretary left, Charles turned back to Kate. "I hope this conversation has been helpful. I know it's not always easy being in this family." Kate smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "It's been very helpful. Thank you for taking the time." "We should do this more regularly," Charles said. "All of us. Perhaps monthly family meetings where we can discuss things openly, away from advisors and protocol." The idea appealed to Kate. Too often, family conversations happened in formal settings with other people present. Having regular private discussions might prevent small issues from becoming big problems. "I think William would appreciate that," she said. As they walked toward the door together, Charles spoke quietly. "I know I wasn't always the easiest person to get along with during William's childhood. I was dealing with my own struggles then, but I want you to know how grateful I am for the stability and love you've brought to his life." Kate felt tears pricking her eyes. She had always wondered if Charles approved of her, if he thought she was suitable for his son. Hearing these words meant more than she could express. "Thank you," she managed. "That means everything to me." They reached the door, and Charles paused. "One last thing. If you ever need to talk about anything, the pressures of the role, concerns about the children, anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're family, and family supports each other." As Kate walked back through the corridors toward her own apartments, she felt lighter than she had in months. The conversation had given her hope that the family tensions could be resolved. More importantly, it had reminded her that she wasn't navigating this complex world alone. She thought about how she would share this with William. Not the specific details of what Charles had said, but the general message of support and understanding. Perhaps tonight, after the children were asleep, they could sit by the fire in their private sitting room and talk about the future with more optimism than they had felt in a long time. Outside, the rain had completely stopped, and golden afternoon sunlight was breaking through the clouds, casting warm light through the palace windows. It felt like a good sign for what was to come. 3 floors above the blue drawing room, in a smaller sitting room that overlooked the castle's private gardens, Camilla sat alone with a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. She had been there for over an hour, watching through the partially opened door as Charles made his way to speak with Kate. She knew what the conversation was about, even though she hadn't been included. The exclusion stung more than she cared to admit. After decades of standing by Charles through every scandal, every difficult period, every public criticism, she still sometimes felt like an outsider looking in. The family accepted her now, respected her contributions, but there were moments like these when the invisible barriers became visible again. She set down her teacup and walked to the window. From this angle, she could see the blue drawing room's windows below. The curtains were drawn, but she knew the two most important people in her husband's life were inside having a conversation that would shape the family's future. A conversation that would happen without any input from her. Camilla understood why, of course. Kate was the future queen consort, the mother of future monarchs. Her relationship with Charles was crucial for family unity, but understanding something intellectually didn't make the emotional impact any easier to bear. She thought back to the early days of her marriage to Charles. The public had been hostile, the press brutal. Every appearance was scrutinized, every gesture analyzed for signs that she was unworthy of her position. She had worked tirelessly to prove herself, taking on difficult causes, visiting places other royals avoided, speaking up for issues that mattered but weren't always popular. Slowly, very slowly, public opinion had shifted. Respect replaced hostility. Appreciation for her work grew. She had earned her place through persistence and genuine dedication to service. But love, the kind of adoration Diana had received and that Kate now enjoyed, remained elusive. The comparison to Diana was inevitable and painful. Even now, decades after Diana's death, Camilla was still defined in relation to the woman who had come before her. Diana the beloved, Diana the wronged wife, Diana the people's princess. No matter what Camilla accomplished, she remained in that shadow. With Kate, the situation was different but equally challenging. The young woman had never done anything wrong to Camilla personally. She was polite, respectful, hard-working. She clearly loved William and was a devoted mother. But her natural charisma and the public's instant acceptance of her served as a constant reminder of what Camilla had never achieved. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Her lady-in-waiting Sarah entered quietly. "Your Royal Highness, the car is ready for your visit to the women's shelter." Camilla had forgotten about the scheduled visit. She was supposed to spend the afternoon meeting with women who had escaped domestic violence, discussing the charity's new support programs. It was important work she cared deeply about, but facing people right now felt overwhelming. "Could we postpone?" she asked, then immediately felt guilty. These women had made time in their recovery to meet with her. Disappointing them because of her own emotional struggles wasn't acceptable. "Actually, no," she corrected herself. "Give me 10 minutes to freshen up." Sarah nodded and withdrew. Camilla looked at herself in the ornate mirror above the fireplace. At 76, she had learned to dress well for her figure, to style her hair in a way that photographed nicely, to smile even when she felt like crying. These skills served her well in public, but they were exhausting to maintain. She applied fresh lipstick and checked her appearance one more time. The woman looking back at her was elegant, well-dressed, every inch a royal consort. But sometimes she missed the younger woman who had fallen in love with Charles when they were both very different people, living very different lives. As she gathered her handbag and gloves, Camilla's thoughts drifted to the conversation happening downstairs. What were Charles and Kate discussing? Was it about the upcoming state visit, the children's education, the family's public image? More likely, it was about William's relationship with his father and the tensions that had been building for months. William was eager to take on more responsibilities, to modernize the monarchy's approach to public service. Charles, while supportive of change, wanted to ensure that innovations didn't destabilize the institution he had waited so long to lead. Camilla found herself caught between them sometimes. William respected her, but their relationship lacked the warmth he shared with his father or the easy camaraderie he had with Kate. She was Charles's wife, a family member by marriage, but not someone William turned to for advice or support. The drive to the women's shelter took 30 minutes through London traffic. Camilla used the time to review her notes about the charity's work and the specific challenges facing domestic violence survivors. This was genuinely important to her, having grown up with friends who suffered in abusive relationships. Her own daughter had experienced domestic violence years earlier, making the cause deeply personal. At the shelter, Camilla's public persona took over completely. She listened intently to the women's stories, asked thoughtful questions, and offered genuine encouragement. The work was emotionally demanding but rewarding. These women had survived terrible situations and were rebuilding their lives with courage and determination. During a break between meetings, the shelter director pulled Camilla aside. "Your Royal Highness, I wanted to thank you for the funding increase you secured for our legal aid program. It's made a real difference for women trying to navigate divorce proceedings and custody battles." Camilla felt a flush of pride. This was the kind of behind-the-scenes work that rarely made headlines but changed lives. She had spent months meeting with government officials and charity leaders to expand funding for legal support services. "I'm glad it's helping," she replied. "These women deserve every bit of support we can provide." As the visit continued, Camilla found herself thinking about purpose and recognition. The women at the shelter didn't care about her complicated relationship with public opinion. They cared about her advocacy, her genuine concern for their welfare, her ability to bring attention and resources to their cause. On the drive back to Windsor, Camilla's phone buzzed with a text from Charles. "Hope your shelter visit went well. Home by 6 for quiet dinner together?" She smiled, her first genuine smile of the day. Whatever complexities existed in their public lives, their private relationship remained strong. Charles valued her counsel, enjoyed her company, and supported her work, even when it didn't generate positive headlines. Back at the castle, Camilla went to her private office to review correspondence. Her secretary had left a stack of thank-you letters from recent events, including several from military families she had visited the previous week. One letter particularly caught her attention. A young Army wife had written to thank her for spending extra time talking with the children during the base visit. "You made my daughter feel so special," the letter read. "She's been telling everyone about the lovely queen who asked about her drawings and remembered her name when you saw her again later." These moments reminded Camilla why the work mattered more than the recognition. Impact was more important than popularity, even though the lack of popularity still hurt. As 6 o'clock approached, Camilla made her way to the small dining room where she and Charles often shared informal meals. She found him already there, having changed from his formal clothes into a comfortable sweater and trousers. "How was the shelter?" he asked, genuinely interested. "Moving as always," she replied, settling into her chair. "The legal aid program is helping more women than we expected. We might need to expand it again." Charles nodded. "Whatever you need. Your work with these charities is some of the most important the family does." They talked about her afternoon for several minutes before Camilla gathered the courage to ask what she really wanted to know. "How was your conversation with Kate?" Charles paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. "It went well. We talked about family unity, about supporting William during stressful periods, about the children's future." This was what Camilla had expected, but hearing it confirmed still stung. "I suppose I wasn't needed for that conversation." Charles set down his fork and looked at his wife directly. "Camilla, you know that's not how I see these things, don't I?" she asked quietly. "Charles, I've been by your side through everything. I understand why you needed to talk with Kate alone. She's William's wife, the future queen consort. But sometimes I feel like I'm still proving myself after all these years." The honesty hung in the air between them. Charles reached across the table to take her hand. "You shouldn't have to prove anything anymore," he said firmly. "Your place in this family, your value to the monarchy, your importance to me, none of that is in question." "But it feels like it sometimes," Camilla admitted. "When the family discusses the future, I'm often not included. When there are difficult conversations, I'm often not consulted. I understand the practical reasons, but emotionally—" She trailed off, not wanting to sound self-pitying. Charles was quiet for a long moment. "You're right. I have been excluding you from some discussions, and that's not fair. I think I was trying to protect you from family drama, but I can see how that feels like being pushed aside." This acknowledgement meant a great deal to Camilla. She had wondered if she was being overly sensitive or if the exclusion was real. "I don't need protection from family drama," she said. "I need to feel like an equal partner in this marriage and a valued member of this family." "You are both of those things," Charles assured her, "and I'm going to do better about showing it." They finished dinner talking about lighter topics: the upcoming garden party, renovations to one of the smaller royal residences, plans for their wedding anniversary next month. But the earlier conversation had cleared the air in a way that felt important. Later that evening, as Camilla prepared for bed, she reflected on the day's events. The shelter visit had reminded her of her purpose and impact. The conversation with Charles had addressed concerns she had carried for months. But the underlying challenges of her position remained. She would never be Diana, beloved and mourned. She would never be Kate, young and naturally charismatic. But she could be Camilla, steady, dedicated, experienced, and valuable in her own right. The public might never love her the way they loved others, but respect and appreciation were worth having too. As she turned off the light, Camilla made a decision. Tomorrow, she would ask Charles to include her in the next family meeting about future planning. She would stop waiting for invitations and start asserting her right to be part of important discussions. After 16 years of marriage and decades of faithful service, she had earned her place at the table. The shadows that had felt so overwhelming earlier now seemed more manageable. They would always be there. Some people's legacies cast long shadows, but she could step out of them when necessary and create her own space in the light. 2 weeks had passed since the quiet conversation in the blue drawing room, and the effects were beginning to show in small but meaningful ways. William seemed more relaxed during public appearances, and Charles had started including Camilla in planning meetings she had previously been excluded from. But the real test would come tonight, during the family dinner that Charles had suggested as a way to improve communication. Kate stood in front of her bedroom mirror, choosing jewelry for the evening. It wasn't a formal state occasion, just family, but royal family dinners still required careful consideration of appearance. Every choice sent a message, even among relatives. She selected simple pearl earrings and her wedding ring, wanting to project warmth rather than formality. William emerged from the bathroom, straightening his tie. "Ready for the diplomatic mission?" he asked with a slight smile. "Is that what we're calling it?" Kate replied, but she understood what he meant. These family gatherings could be minefields of unspoken tensions and careful conversations. "Well, it's certainly more challenging than most state visits," William said. "At least with foreign dignitaries, everyone admits they're being diplomatic." They walked together toward the family dining room, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet in the corridor. Windsor Castle felt different in the evening, with shadows stretching across the walls and the weight of centuries seeming heavier in the dim light. Charles was already in the dining room when they arrived, standing near the fireplace with a glass of wine. He had chosen to dress casually, no formal uniform or ceremonial orders, just a well-tailored suit that suggested this was family time rather than official business. "Good evening," he said, embracing Kate warmly and clapping William on the shoulder. "I thought we might have drinks first. Give everyone time to arrive and settle in." Camilla entered a few minutes later, wearing an elegant navy dress that Kate recognized as one of her favorites. She had clearly taken care with her appearance, but there was something different about her demeanor tonight. She seemed more confident, less hesitant than she had been in recent months. "Sorry I'm late," Camilla said, accepting a glass of wine from Charles. "I was finishing a call with the shelter we visited last week. They've had 3 more women seek help since our visit brought media attention to their work." Kate noticed how Charles's face lit up when Camilla mentioned her charitable work. Despite all the complications in their family relationships, his pride in his wife's accomplishments was genuine and visible. "That's wonderful," Kate said. "The work you do with domestic violence charities is so important." Camilla looked surprised by the compliment, then pleased. "Thank you. It's not always glamorous work, but it makes a real difference in women's lives." They moved to the dining table, which had been set for 4 with the castle's everyday china rather than the formal state dinner service. The flowers were simple, white roses from the castle gardens, and the lighting was warm rather than dramatic. Everything about the setting suggested intimacy rather than ceremony. As they settled into their seats, Charles raised his glass. "To family," he said simply, "and to honest conversation." The first course was served, a light soup that allowed for easy conversation. For several minutes, they discussed safe topics, the children's school activities, upcoming charitable events, the weather. But Kate could sense everyone waiting for more substantial discussion to begin. William was the first to venture into deeper waters. "I wanted to thank you both for the advice about the state visit next month. I've been feeling more confident about it after our conversation." He looked at his father, but Kate noticed he included Camilla in his glance. This was new. In the past, William's discussions about royal duties rarely acknowledged Camilla's experience or wisdom. "The French president is actually quite charming," Camilla said. "I met him during the climate summit last year. He's very interested in environmental cooperation between our countries. That might be a good topic for building rapport." William nodded, genuinely interested. "I hadn't thought about approaching it from that angle. Most of the briefing papers focused on trade relationships." "Both are important," Charles added, "but personal connections often matter more than people realize in diplomacy. If you can find common ground early, the formal discussions go much more smoothly." Kate watched this exchange with growing optimism. For the first time in months, the 3 of them were talking together as a unit, rather than as separate individuals managing separate relationships. As the main course was served, roast lamb with seasonal vegetables, the conversation turned to more personal matters. William mentioned the challenges of balancing public duties with parenting. "George has started asking why he can't have friends over for spontaneous sleepovers like other children," he said. "It's difficult to explain security protocols to a 10-year-old. Camilla leaned forward with interest. "Charles faced similar questions when William was that age, didn't you?" Charles nodded. "I remember you asking why you couldn't just walk to the village shop like your school friends did. We ended up arranging regular normal outings where you could do ordinary things, just with security watching from a distance." "That actually helped a lot," William acknowledged. "Maybe we could do something similar with George and Charlotte." Kate felt touched that the conversation included her children so naturally. Sometimes she worried that the older generation saw them as the next generation's problem, rather than family members to be nurtured and protected together. "Louis is still young enough to accept the restrictions without question," she said, "but I know that will change as he gets older." "Each child is different too," Camilla observed. "Some are naturally more private, others crave more normal experiences. You'll probably need different approaches for each of them." This insight surprised Kate. She hadn't expected Camilla to offer parenting advice, but the comment showed thoughtful understanding of the unique challenges royal children faced. As dinner continued, the conversation flowed more easily than it had in months. They discussed upcoming engagements, shared funny stories about recent public appearances, and even ventured into more serious topics like the monarchy's role in modern society. "I've been thinking about something you said," William told his father, "about change needing to happen gradually to avoid breaking the institution. But I worry that gradual change might not keep pace with how quickly society is evolving." Charles considered this carefully. It's a valid concern. Perhaps the answer isn't to slow down all change, but to be more strategic about which changes happen quickly and which need more time. "What do you mean?" Kate asked. "Some changes are about perception and communication," Charles explained. "Those can happen relatively quickly without disrupting core structures. Other changes affect constitutional arrangements or centuries-old traditions. Those require more careful consideration." Camilla nodded. "Like when we modernized the way we handle social media. That was a quick change that helped us reach younger audiences without changing anything fundamental about our roles." "Exactly," Charles said, "whereas something like changing the rules of succession required years of discussion and coordination with Parliament and the Commonwealth countries." William looked thoughtful. "So maybe I need to categorize my ideas differently. Quick wins versus long-term projects." "That might help with the frustration you've been feeling," Kate suggested gently. "When you can see progress happening in some areas, it might be easier to be patient about others." As dessert was served, a simple fruit tart with cream, the atmosphere at the table was noticeably more relaxed than when they had begun. Kate realized that this was the first family dinner in months where no one seemed to be walking on eggshells or carefully avoiding sensitive topics. "I have a suggestion," Charles said as they finished eating. "What if we make these family dinners a regular occurrence? Monthly, perhaps, with a standing agreement that we can discuss anything openly." William and Kate exchanged a glance. The idea appealed to both of them. "I think that would be helpful," William said. "Sometimes issues build up when we don't have a forum for discussing them." "And it would be good for family unity," Kate added. "The children notice when there's tension between the adults. Regular communication might prevent that." Camilla had been quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up. "I'd like that too. Sometimes I feel out of the loop on family decisions. Regular meetings would help me stay informed and contribute more effectively." Charles reached over and squeezed her hand. "You should never feel out of the loop. Your perspective and experience are valuable to all of us." As they moved to the drawing room for coffee, Kate found herself walking beside Camilla. The two women had always been polite to each other, but their relationship had remained somewhat formal, despite years of family events together. "Thank you for your advice about the children earlier," Kate said quietly. "I hadn't considered how different each of their personalities might require different approaches to royal life." Camilla smiled. "I remember watching Charles navigate parenthood while dealing with public scrutiny. It's not easy. William and Harry were so different in how they handled the attention." This was the first time Camilla had mentioned Harry in Kate's presence since his departure from royal duties. The topic was sensitive for the entire family, but Kate appreciated that Camilla felt comfortable enough to bring it up. "I think about Harry sometimes," Kate admitted. "Wonder if we could have done things differently to help him find his place in the family structure." "We all think about that," Camilla replied. "But you can't protect someone from their own choices forever. All you can do is keep the door open for when they're ready to come back." In the drawing room, Charles poured brandy for himself and William while Kate and Camilla chose tea. The fire crackled quietly, and the evening felt peaceful in a way that family gatherings hadn't for some time. "There's something I'd like to propose," Camilla said, setting down her teacup. "I think we should consider coordinating our charitable work more closely." She had everyone's attention now. Charitable work was a significant part of all their public roles, but they had generally pursued separate causes and separate approaches. "I don't mean abandoning our individual causes," she continued. but there might be opportunities for collaboration that could amplify our impact. William leaned forward with interest. What kind of collaboration were you thinking about? Well, for example, Kate's work with early childhood development and my work with domestic violence survivors often overlap. Women fleeing abusive relationships frequently have children who need specialized support. Kate's eyes lit up. That's true. I hadn't thought about connecting those issues directly. And William's environmental work connects to housing issues, which affects both of our areas, Camilla continued. Poor housing conditions impact child development, and women leaving abusive relationships often struggle to find safe, affordable housing. Charles nodded approvingly. This is exactly the kind of strategic thinking that could make all our work more effective. As the evening wound down, Kate reflected on how much had changed in just a few hours. The family dynamics that had seemed so strained 2 weeks ago now felt more balanced and collaborative. Not everything was resolved. Family relationships were never that simple. But there was a foundation for moving forward together. Walking back to their apartments with William, Kate felt optimistic about the future in a way she hadn't for months. That went better than I expected, William said quietly. Much better. Your father was right about needing regular communication, and Camilla surprised me tonight. In what way? Kate thought about how to express what she had observed. She seemed more confident, more willing to assert herself, but also more collaborative, like she's found her place in the family dynamics instead of feeling like she has to prove herself all the time. William nodded. I noticed that too. And I realized tonight that I've been undervaluing her experience and insights. She's been doing this work longer than any of us. As they reached their door, Kate looked back down the corridor toward Charles and Camilla's apartments. Light still showed under their door, and she could hear the murmur of quiet conversation. Whatever private discussions they were having, they seemed to be building on the positive momentum of the evening. The next morning brought confirmation that the family dinner had indeed marked a turning point. Charles's secretary called to schedule regular monthly family meetings, and Camilla sent Kate a detailed proposal for coordinating their charitable work. William seemed more relaxed during his morning briefings, and even the castle staff commented on the improved atmosphere. But perhaps the most significant change was the smallest one. When Kate passed Camilla in the corridor later that day, they exchanged warm smiles, and Camilla asked about Charlotte's piano lessons. It was a brief interaction, but it felt natural rather than formal. The foundation for a genuine family relationship had been laid, built on mutual respect and shared purpose rather than just ceremonial politeness. The shadows that had hung over family relationships for months were beginning to lift, replaced by something stronger and more sustainable, genuine understanding and collaborative commitment to their shared responsibilities. The monarchy would face many challenges in the years ahead, but it would face them with a united family working together rather than individuals struggling separately with the weight of their roles.